Verity, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, how are you?
I'm
good. Me.
I love that we're doing this. This is your first podcast interview. You had actually reached out and said that you were loving the podcast, and you talked about that you're a merchandiser. And I was like, okay, I want to have you on.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me. It's really exciting. I'm quite nervous being the first podcast.
Oh, my God.
I'm really excited.
Don't be nervous. It's literally just a conversation. But because it seems like our merchandising episodes have the biggest listeners to it because everyone wants to know about merchandising. So I figured it would be great to get a take on the UK's, how they do merchandising versus how we do it here in America.
Great. So I'm interested to know as well the differences.
So tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Verity. I live in Oxfordshire in the UK, of course, as you just said. Next year will be my 20th year in retail design. So I do retail interiors as well as visual merchandising. So not quite as many years you've clocked up, but still a few. I started my career with IKEA after I graduated from art college. So I did graphic design at art college. I think these days you can do visual merchandising as a degree, but there wasn't an option back then. So I went off to work for IKEA as like an entry-level visual merchandiser and interior designer and did a couple of years there, which was pretty much where I cut my teeth. It was a really good experience. And then from there, I went to work for various different design agencies and shop fitters as more the sort of interior design side of retail design rather than the in-store stuff. And I've just kind of like flip-flopped between the two ever since, really. So I get a bit bored of sitting behind a computer. I want to go back to the stores. And so that's kind of how it's been, really.
Are you freelance now?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am at the moment. We moved to Oxfordshire beginning of last year after everything opened up again. So I'm kind of trying to get more of a local client base up again. So yeah, I'm freelancing again at the moment. Not doing much visual merchandising, more store interiors at the moment. But yeah, freelancing at the moment.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about IKEA because we talked off camera about my friend Fabian, who's with IKEA forever, and I've got other friends that are there. Tell me about what it's like to merchandise with IKEA from the ground up as you're starting as an entry level.
Okay, so it's huge. It's a massive machine, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was probably, not meaning to start with a negative, but probably one of the reasons why I left is because you are just such a small cog. But it's an amazing place to work, like what you learn, because they're like, they're the best at retail or some of the best retailers in the world. So the opportunity that you get to learn is fantastic. And where they lack in the sense that you're small cog, the opportunity is amazing. So within like 3 months, I think, of being there, we were posted off to Europe to do store openings, which,
wow.
Yeah, amazing. So we just learned loads and loads and loads. Because, you know what it's like at a store opening when you don't get the opportunity to have a store with no customers. So the learning is amazing.
Yeah.
So, we were posted off for like 2 or 3 months, just like play, really. It was amazing.
Wow. So let me ask you, because store openings are my favorite. Like I used to do them with anthropology. And I think, did you just say it's like a couple months of doing, how long does it, what's the store opening look like for IKEA? Because they are massive. I mean, are they the same in the UK where they're usually like 2 floors and it's like, I don't even know how square footage it is. Like they're massive. Yeah,
they're huge. And the planning side of things. So, I don't know because I was entry level doing this is like, what we're talking now, only 20 years ago. So things may well have changed. But the planning for the stores would have started, a year, 18 months, maybe more before anything happens. And then when the actual structure of the building is built, then we would be sent in. There'd be teams of VMs and support sent from stores all over to go, and they would send people all over. So, and we would be there for anything from like 4 weeks up to 12 weeks.
Oh my God.
Day in, day out. It was amazing.
So it was 4 weeks to get a store. I mean, I guess that makes sense because they would fly us in the main team that took the delivery of like the main fixtures and, the trucks that first came in, and then they would fly us in and then we would set the floor. But 10 days, I think, is the length of what it was an opening. And that's including the big display windows, but same thing, would fly in visual merchandisers and the display coordinators, who are the ones who do all that really intricate display. But it's still like, that's a month into 12 weeks is a long ass time to be on a job site.
Yeah, totally was. Most of the people that I was there with, we were just started working for IKEA, and we were probably like in our early 20s. So, like what an opportunity to go traveling and work and just meet all these people. It was amazing. But yeah, I can see why there weren't so many old people doing it, because, it's complicated. I don't think I could just give up 12 weeks now and go to work somewhere.
So what did a day in a life look like for you guys doing a store opening for IKEA?
Well, so do you know what? It was so much more relaxing than when you're working in your usual store. Because like a day in a life when we were working for Bristol was my UK-based store. We'd be, you'd start work about 6:30, 7, and the store would open at about 10. So you'd have like a good few hours to refresh and make it all ready for the customers. And then you'd finish quite early. So you'd finish about 4:00 at the end of the day, which is quite early, I think, compared to my life now. But when you were doing a build, you could be quite long hours, really, but it wasn't the early starts weren't necessary. So it was quite relaxing and European. Like we'd be in a hotel, you'd have a nice breakfast, you get on your hire bike and cycle to wherever the store was. It was been great.
Wow, how cool. And so you guys would start in the morning, and then, what did...
Yeah, it would be about a 10-hour day, probably.
Wow. So do you all, is it very much like everybody breaks at the same time, or is everyone on their projects, or...
Yeah, definitely. Everybody breaks at the same time. They're really good, actually. Well, again, this is like 20 years ago, so I'm guessing they'd do the same stuff. But they would really recognize that you were away from home. So they used to put on like a weekly event. So there'd be like a big party or a barbecue or something after work for everybody. Yeah, no, really, really good. So you'd really bond and get to know everybody. It was really great from a social point of view. Yeah, because then at the weekend you'd be free to go and do whatever you wanted to. You didn't have to work in, you won't work at the weekends and stuff. So
so they didn't work you like day.
No, that was like your time to explore. Yeah,
yeah. It's very American to send you in and like you stay there till it's done, and then you go home back to your shop. Like no day.
Yeah, I've heard work ethic's a bit different. Yeah, so yeah, but we've
Oh, sorry.
So. It's quite different because later, I've been working since, 2020 ended. I was working for VM for Flying Tiger. I don't know whether do you know them? So they're a Danish company, again, a little bit like the Market Hall in IKEA. So they're like a small high street. I was working for the head of VM for the UK partnership for 7 years. And in that time, we must have opened... with 20 stores, I must have done 20 store openings, maybe. Quite a lot, anyway. And so we would arrive when the stock would arrive, and we'd have about 5 days to turn it around. So that'd be quite a different experience to the IKEA days. That's probably a bit closer to your anthropology experiences.
What does Flying Tiger, is it a department store? Is it home? Is it what type of...
They call it a variety store. And what kind of size is it? It's like about 2,000 square feet, probably average size. It's a high street store.
What is a high street store? No, what is that?
Main Street. Okay, so high street is like, would you call it Main Street in America, I guess? So shopping in the UK, you'd have like a town, and there'd be like a street in the centre of the town, which would have all the shops on, and that would be like where your cafes are and your boutiques and your shops and your doctors and your butchers and all that kind of thing. That would be your high street. So they're not like large stores out of town.
Okay.
So it's not like an IKEA.
And they're different into malls.
Yes, they are different. Yeah. Yeah. They're kind of like the center of a community is the dream.
Oh, yeah. And they were variety like home and apparel, or was it home goods and gifts, or?
Well, yeah, so everything. So they call themselves a variety store. What they used to say, extraordinary things for everyday life. So that was their strapline. So they would sell everything from hobby items and craft things for kids, toys. Then they'd sell like sunglasses and hair accessories, right up to like kitchen and baking goods. The lot.
Wow.
It looks very IKEA-y, but a bit quirkier, a bit more kind of colourful and zany.
It almost sounds like for us here, it's a brand called Daiso, I think. It's Japanese. And it's like, same thing. They're about 2,000 square feet. And it's everything from like kitschy home goods to stickers and pads and like
That sounds
random stuff. But
it's very random, random, which from a merchandising point of view was hell.
What was their merchandising? When they do their merchandising plan, like, is it all on end caps? Is it vignettes? How did they do that?
So the interior is quite unique, actually. I really enjoyed working there purely because it's quite of a one-off. So they, much like like the IKEA maze, but in a very, very small format. So there was like a racetrack round. So it was very much funneled. People used to either love it or hate it because they'd get stuck in it. But it was all slat wall, which I know you'd hate.
Oh my God.
It was all slat wall. And then they had, tables that had the stock cupboards underneath, which then had a stepped wine box display along them, all the way along. So that sounds awful, but it actually looked almost quite kind of like utilitarian and sleek and modern. And all the branding and the graphics are very black and white and then colourful photography. So it just looked very bright. And the music was always very like retro, funky and a bit too, like almost awkwardly loud. So it was like really high energy.
That's cool. I love that.
It was very cool. Cool was very much a word for them, I'd say. Yeah. But one of the struggles or the challenges is that every month they would launch a new campaign. So they had quite a kind of niche following because people loved the fact that every month there was new stock, which is like the key to everything, isn't it? If every time you go in there, then something new. So every month would be about 200 to 250 new products every single month. So like trying to merchandise through that was the challenge.
Is it just interjecting new, I'm guessing they're done in vignettes. So I'm guessing like this is our housewares, this is our craft section. So is it more placing new product within the vignette, or are you doing full upheaves of vignettes to create this new, or is it just basically spotlighting the new receipts?
So a bit of both. So all the windows obviously would be completely gutted and the new displays would go in. Then you'd have what would called cross-house display tables. So right at the front of the store, all of that would be new. And then strategically around the store, there'd be new tables as well. And then every single department, that eye level, obviously eye level by level, that would be then where you have to replace all the new products as well. So I'd say probably 60% of the store was refreshed every month.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was.
That speaks volume because I always talk about like, you need to be changing your focal tables at least once a month because your regular customers come in and it's like, if it's the same step, they're going to look and keep on going. So obviously that has proven to be successful for them.
It was hugely successful. So what they do is they get a whole new campaign once a month, and then they have campaign 2, which is the same design theme, but more products 2 weeks later. So it would actually be refreshed every 2 weeks. Wow. The windows would change every month, but then refreshed again every 2 weeks. So like it was amazing because every time you go in, it was like, wow, what are you going to find now? Like the discovery was crazy.
How did
they were really cool retailers.
How did they relay the information for the products that are coming up in the vignettes? Because Anthro, we had packets every quarter. I mean, we'd get little packets, but the big things were done in giant packs where it had like who lived there and all the SKUs. How did it look like to roll out these new vignettes every month?
Well, that was a big part of my role. So Denmark would send the packs, and then I'd have to then work out what's actually been ordered for each store. And then I used to produce the planograms that then could be sent out for them to put into place. So it was very much, follow this, but there was always a guide because, some things get missed in delivery. Let's say you're going to get something, but you never get what you're expecting, do you? So there was always a little bit of like, this is a guide. But yeah, that's what I used to do every month, was put those packs together. So it'd be a window guide, and then you'd have your display guide, and then there'd be, this is what you're going to be getting, and how they updated. We didn't used to call them vignettes, we used to call them houses. So the departments, that would be then up to the store staff to use their initiative with a bit of training to say, these are your these are your A locations or your hotspots. This is where the new product must go. But yeah.
Did you go in the stores and do the flips yourselves, or were you doing most of the planning from?
So when I started working for them, so I used to work for the UK partnership. There was just one Cheltenham store to begin with. So I used to go once a month to help them with the delivery and refresh it all. And then as it grew and grew and grew, it's just, I couldn't, I need a lot of people to do that. So that's why I ended up doing the planograms and these PDFs that I used to send out, these guides every month. And then I used to do a store rotational visit so that you get round. But generally speaking, if there was a store wasn't doing so well, if sales were down, that's where I'd go. You know how it
That's what I was just about to ask you.
and it would always be when you got there that the stock cupboards were, you just couldn't get in there, and there was like the chaos would start in the stock rooms. And if you walk in and the stock rooms are a mess, then you know what's going on.
Yes,
because the staff can't replenish, can they? So
how did you guys work through that? I mean, I know when we would have store visits, it was like, man, it was a whole thing. I mean, it was like the store director and then the buyers and the president sometimes was, I mean, it was just like, it was like stressful to say the least, but it was always interesting to find like as they walk through the store. So what did a store visit look like, and how do you rectify when stuff is not on the floor and you can't get to the stock room?
Well, hopefully I wasn't intimidated. I mean, I'd like to think I'm a friendly person, so it would generally be me, and then they might have area managers would do their own separate walkthroughs. But it would be a whole day. We'd start with a walkthrough and list it all out, and then you'd have to actually go through with the best sellers list and work out like where is this? It's not out, and then you generally find out the reason why it's not out is because nobody can actually reach the box because it's behind another box that's behind another box that's shoved in the corner.
Thank you.
you know.
I mean, I've said on stories all the time, like, the first thing I do when I go to my accounts is, well, one, walk the floor and see the state of the store, and then walk the back room because, it's always interesting. It's like, Anthro, you could see it on reports. It would show up. It's like, we got our reports every Monday, and you're supposed to stay in line with stores that are doing about your volume. So for me, I was on Third Street Promenade, and our store that we were compared to was Rockefeller Center in New York, and they did like crazy volume. And it would always be interesting to see like when they're like, because you got to report on your velocity items. So top 10 items on every single different department, which is a lot of items.
Yeah, it's a lot to go through as well.
Oh my God. And then it always be like really interesting. It's like, and I would always get called out because I've told the story before. There's a stupid fish hook that I hated, and I like hit it.
Oh, I've heard this from you.
It's like
on the blog.
It was always interesting to see how it showed up. It's like, all right, Michelle, like your fish hook, your number one velocity item in wall decor fell off the radar. Where is it? It's either one of three things. It's not on the floor, it's hidden, or it's still, or it's in the stock room somewhere, And that report, it's like for people, I always tell people, like, if you run reports and you see something drops off and you have stock, like that's your cue to go search it out. Like, where is
Absolutely. That's exactly it. Yeah. And it's and it was always the 80-20 rule as well.
What's the
so 80% of your sales come from 20% of your products, and it was always the case. It's just quite uncanny.
The other thing I always tell people, because I will be the first to say, if your merchandiser doesn't walk your stock room, like you need a new merchandiser, because there's merchandisers that like want to make it look good, and it's like we're only here to make it look good and pretty, and like we don't have stock. But honestly, like it gets down to numbers and business, and I think a lot of people don't realize that's the value of a merchandiser. They're there to see both visually how it looks, but also how it sells.
Oh, absolutely. I think visual merchandising as a profession gets quite a bad press for that, because I think people think you just go in and fluff up some pillows and, just change some coloured candles around or whatever. But there's so much more to it. It's so strategic and so based in numbers, especially these days.
How then, when you would find something that has fallen off the radar, and if it's not in the stock room, what was your strategy?
Well, then it would be go back to head office and buying and say, why haven't they got any? It wouldn't be really my remit to work out what's happened to the stock. It would just be a case of it needs to be followed up, really. That'll be back with the store managers, but it would be highlighted. That's the point.
How about if the product was on the floor and it still is dropping off sales? Do you try and move it around a few times, or do you send it away?
Totally. So that would be, then you'd be questioning, well, why? I mean, if this is a bestseller in every other store but here, and it's out on the shop floor, why? So, and it would be 9 times out of 10, it would be because of it's hidden behind something, or it's still got its packaging on it. It's not showing, it's not been shown off at its best, or it's not in the right place, or nobody's seeing it. It's in a dark corner. It has to be in its best possible spot. If it's a bestseller, you need it to be what's going to drive you around the store.
Oh my God, I love when you just said that. When you say take stuff out of packaging, because you've listened to the podcast, obviously, like I get flack for it most of the time from manufacturers, but it's like, I believe that product looks better out of its packaging. And I also think that customers want to look and feel and touch it. And if you don't have some of it out of boxes, like no one's going to open the box. And I feel like customers are not going to open a box. So people just be like, it's whatever. But I think I can't stand packaging. Like, I just think it makes it look so less valuable, I guess you should say.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, it's shopping with your senses, isn't it? Everything is about the 5 senses. So, I mean, you could talk about, not just at Tiger, because Tiger isn't really a particularly tactile kind of, the product's not displayed in stories particularly. It's not, but like quite often you'd get a box would come in with all the product in it. It'd all be individually wrapped in plastic, and the store staff wouldn't take it out of the packaging, not even the packaging. There wouldn't be, I'm not explaining this very well. So like how it would come in the box, and they wouldn't even take it out of the plastic cellophane. So it would just be like, then it'd be like, okay. But I totally agree with you. Like, we shop with our hands, don't we? So if you take it out of the plastic, then you're going to feel it, and you're going to smell it, and you're going to enjoy the texture of it. Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that people being able to touch and feel, and that's why, I get on my soapbox, but I still think that's why Amazon's never going to replace regular retailers, because people are tactile. People want to feel it and touch it and experience it.
Yeah. Going back to IKEA, actually, 20 years ago, when we were working in the market hall in IKEA, if there was something in a box, you took it out of the box and you'd have to put it on a solid shelf above so that everybody could see and feel the product, and then take the box below away to buy. So 20 years ago, that was what you did.
It's still what they do. And what I love, because I've gotten caught, is that they'll have the items in boxes and the 2 samples, whatever the items that are in the boxes in front. And they're very smart because they label them that this is not for sale. And damn if I haven't tried to take them, because, the items are missing, and it's like the last 2 are the only 2 samples. And I swear I will take those up to the register, and they're like, I'm sorry, you can't have these. And they'll take them out. It makes me so mad. But that's smart, though, because then at least your sample stays intact. The items are behind it. You never have to worry about, well, feasibly, you never have to worry about somebody buying the sample.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's less write-off in theory, but yeah,
What?
have to replace them all the time.
How long were you at the Tiger brand?
7 years.
And then why did you leave?
Oh, I would have stayed. It was pandemic. It was just lost the contract. Yeah, yeah.
So you were freelance for them, or
Yeah, I was freelance for them, but it was pretty much the only thing I was doing. It was taking up all my time. So, yeah, I've got 2 small children. So when I lost the job, I had a 1-year-old and a 2.5-year-old at the time, and the world shut down. So in a way, it was like the best thing for my personal life, because then I could just focus on my small children and all of that. So, because it was quite a beast of a job by the end of it.
Talk to me a little bit about I hate talking about the pandemic, but it's always interesting to see how different areas handled. I mean, there's parts of America that, I mean, I just came from a job and they were like, yeah, it was like there was no pandemic at all. Like we were still having the rodeo. We were still, people were still gathering. I'm like, really? I'm like, how did you have that where some areas were like, there's no pandemic, or were they very like?
No, it was pretty down.
Okay.
Yeah, especially initially anyway. I mean, like people were like us included, I think. We were like quarantining our posts, like you wouldn't touch anything. It was that, which seems really surreal now, but we now know that's
isn't it?
Yeah, really weird.
Yeah,
but then when it started opening up again, some sectors of retail have done really well. So
yeah,
because garden centers have done great.
Did you also have where the government was giving out money or loans or, to help people? So did your economy as far as retail also, because here I'm having I'm having challenges of most of my accounts are like, we're so down, the numbers aren't the same. And it's like the numbers you're comparing your sales to after post-pandemic and all that free money we got is like not normal. Like, don't compare the. Did you also experience that?
Yes, there is a lot of that going on, definitely. It's tricky because we've got the cost of living crisis at the moment here too. Do you have that in America? Probably should know that, but
yeah, kind of. Everyone keeps saying we're coming into a recession, but it's very hard to tell because where I live, it's like. It doesn't seem like there's any recession, but I think the people that are being hit with the recession, to be honest, are the working class and people like myself that, it's a little bit different than the people, because where I live in parts of California, it's like la la land. It's like there's still so much money that but I think there is a recession, especially for the middle class and, that.
Yeah. I think it's definitely having an effect here for sure, though, the cost of living crisis. But I think you just have to compare everything and anything to 2019. We need to get 5 years under our belt, surely. You're not gonna. It's all odd, isn't it? I mean, it was only the Christmas before last where it was like, I don't think we were we open for Christmas? Was it a normal Christmas?
I don't know. I can't. I feel like I've blocked it out on Friday.
Right. Well, of course, there was like the huge supply chain issue then as well. So it was like, I remember I was working for a retailer for 3 months before doing their Christmas planning. And it was like, okay, well, this is going to be this is the best that could happen. This is what might happen. And this is worst case scenario, because it was like planning 3 Christmases because we didn't know what we were going to get.
Wow.
So like, it's just, I think to be able to compare, so really we've only had 12 months, haven't we, of normality to compare in the UK. So yeah, no, I think we've got a couple of years yet before you can start comparing.
Have all of the retailers come back in restaurants, or did you lose a lot of people?
Oh, we've lost loads. I mean, we've had Debenhams have gone and Topshop. You're familiar with those UK retailers? Yeah, quite a lot. But I think, I don't know. My feeling is that it kind of, if they were not keeping up with how retail should be, then they went, it was like.
Thank you.
Without meaning to sound really rude, but
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, I do. I think, like community and human connection and all these things are so much more important now over convenience and efficiency when you're shopping. I mean, they're obviously still important, but the experience, like shopping as entertainment, is way more important now than how it was before. And I think a lot of these older retailers, it was about, let's make your shopping experience really easy and convenient. And it's like, no, we don't really care about that. I want to take some time in this shop. I want to enjoy myself.
I love hearing you say that.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like experiential to me is where I think retail's going, where there's
absolutely totally
experiences going on, and you do want to go in it. And I think it's 7-Eleven is the get in and get out, or some of those stores that it's like there's not. But like for me, like the Anthropology experience of like there's a water feature, and there's you go into the kitchen and they've got some display that's interactive. I mean, I that to me is what I think makes retail so special, and these retailers really excel.
Definitely. I mean, that's going back to the senses again, isn't it? When you go in and you can feel it, you can smell it, you can touch it, you can hear it. It's like it's all it's got to like take you to another place. It's not just about filling up your shopping basket.
Anthro is always sight, sound, and scent. So it was
there you go.
Visual, it was the sound, whether it be music or a water feature. And then my favorite was the scent, because now I think everything is the Capri Blue candle that they do. That's like now the signature scent. But before, talk about a long time ago when I was there, they would do patisserie was our tabletop section, and patisserie always had a cake smelling candle or something sweet. And then the bedroom would have something floral. I mean, it was very thoughtfully planned on the sense that as you ventured through the store, there was very sight, sound, and scent. And I still love that.
Yeah. But I didn't realize that they were that far, like ahead of their time, really.
Yeah, I think now again, like Capri Blue seems to be their signature scent, and everyone keeps calling it like when you go in, you smell like these oranges, which is the Capri Blue candle, which is what, the majority, but they still do the holiday scents. It's just not like when you walk into this patisserie section where there's little cake displays and like all this sweetness, and it feels and looks like patisserie, and then you have that smell. I mean, that sight, sound, and scent thing I would love to be able to do with my clients, but it's challenging in smaller stores.
Yeah. So how do you find your work? Is it word of mouth? Do you have
It is. And that's what I yeah. Yeah. For me, for freelance, and it's funny because yesterday my editor said, I feel like you need to do an episode on just freelance and like how it is to be a freelancer. And so I closed my stores, and then I went to Anthro, or Z Gallery, and then Anthro. And I realized I'm not a corporate person. So I decided against everyone that I was around, like, I'm just quitting my job. And I literally, much like most of the things I do, I just leapt and just quit. And I've been very lucky that I have not had to go out and look for work. It has been all word of mouth. And there'll be times where it's like, oh my gosh, there's nothing going on. And out of nowhere, somebody would say, and now the weird thing, I shouldn't say weird, but now that which is mind blowing to me, is that more people are finding me for merchandising through the podcast than my actual main hustle that's been doing merchandising for like 20 years.
Oh, that is really interesting.
And I'm grateful for it. It's just always like, you found me how? Like, wow, like that's interesting. How about for you now? Because you're freelance.
It's all a bit of a new world for me. Like you, it was always word of mouth before. I never really had to like go out and hunt for anything. It just kind of seemed to evolve and happen.
Yeah.
And then since the pandemic and losing Flying Tiger, I've just been freelancing. But it's like really feast and famine. It's like I do like short-term projects for people. So it's like a few weeks here and there, and then they're done. So it's like I seem to be moving on. So it's like it feels like I'm now constantly looking for work, and it's like I've just got to keep feeding the funnel.
So
you used to have to do that before. Sorry.
Do you do most of what you do is like the design of stores, but do you work with them on merchandising, or is it basically just the store fixtures, layout, whatnot, and then you're done?
Yeah, pretty much the interior. So the fixture, the layout, merchandising gets touched on for sure, but it's not an ongoing thing. I'm finding as well, doing a lot of freelance work for design agencies, it seems to be like a lot of pop-ups, which is interesting, really interesting. But of course, like once it's done, then it closes down and they move on to whatever else. So I'm not really seeing like the repeat work, before it used to be like I'd have these like long relationships with retailers, whereas now it's like we just need you to help us with this for 3 weeks, that kind of thing.
Wow, it must be hard to get, because for me, like my connection is to the stores and to the product and to their sales, and like that is like,
of course. Yeah, it's really valuable, isn't it?
Well,
so I think so. Yeah, I'm also, we've moved areas as well, so I'm trying to like find a local client base as well. That would be great. So I don't know. I'm also like the whole world of social media. That takes up such a lot of my working week now. That was never really anything I ever did before. I mean, like your phone is part of the toolkit when you're in store now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just really different. And I think, I'm like my youngest is going to start school in September, so my like availability will increase and things. So yeah, it's time to like really shake it up a bit, I think.
Do stores there hire freelance merchandisers for, going in and turning stores, or is it more like what you do where it's like design setup and then we got it, thanks so much, bye?
Yeah, basically. So yeah, come and help us for a store setup or for like a refurb or a relaunch, that kind of thing. That tends to be where the sort of work I get more so. And then most of my work at the moment is the store design side of things. So like a refresh. So what I'm working on at the moment is a furniture store in the Channel Islands. So they're like a 3rd generation furniture store. They're quite amazing.
Wow.
Probably can't say too much about it, but I'm sure by the time this is out, it will all be over. Fingers crossed. But yeah, they just need to be brought up to the modern day. So the store interior is like a dusty old furniture store, and so I'm helping them to bring it back to life, to make it feel like a contemporary shopping experience. So it's not just these colours or wallpapers will look lovely here. It's more of a strategic shopping experience. It's more about how the layout and what departments will be best here, and then where your displays need to go. And, it's interesting because I think a lot of retail interior designers who haven't ever worked on a shop floor before, I think sometimes there's a bit of a miscommunication, or that some things don't really join up, if you sort of mean. So I like to think that that's like one of my superpowers, is the fact that I've worked in store and behind a computer too. So they kind of feed each other.
How do you approach, because my Lit Concepts, one of my accounts, and they were a 40-year-old antique store that the son and his wife took over, Dina and Kevin. We've had them on the podcast, but they've been slowly changing this from being, for here in America, the antique stores back in the day were like stack it high and watch it fly. Literally, it'd be like 4 dressers. There was no vignettes. It was literally just your walking through, and we've slowly changed it into, now we have vignettes, and now they're bringing in more gift, and they're really smart. They're adding coffee shop into the product, and then they're different entities like window coverings is a separate thing where you can go get window coverings and get your furniture. But how now I've totally lost my train of thought. How do you approach something like that where it's an old school way of doing things and bringing them up to, today's standards? How do you approach that?
Well, fortunately, they recognize that it needs to change, because
that's the best.
Otherwise they wouldn't have got in touch, would they? And it's the youngest son that's taking over, and I think it's a bit of fresh blood in there that's really like bringing it back to life. But you really have to tread carefully with these things. But it's difficult because it's all a bit, I can't really talk too much about it at the moment. But that company, for example, they're amazing in the sense that they make handmade mattresses. It's all like hand stitched and craft. It's like and they haven't told anybody about this, you know? And it's like,
Oh my gosh.
this needs to be like really shouted about. This is like, really is something that's going to make you stand apart from other retailers. And it's just like unpicking those kind of elements of their branding that they, you know, they didn't even think I don't think they even would have said they had any branding, you know? It's like that kind of, it's that kind of essence of like trying to like point out their really good bits as well as their bits that aren't working too well.
I love that.
I
I love
think,
that you're able to see that when they can't. It's funny. I guess it's like that saying, you
yeah,
can't see the forest through the trees. Like they don't even realize
yeah,
this amazing thing that they do that no one else does.
yeah. Well, I think that's, I mean, going back to Flying Tiger as well, like one of the things that we used to say to our store managers all the time is to go outside onto the pavement in front, have a look at the windows like you're a customer, like you've never seen this before, and look at it and actually think, what am I looking at? You know, what can I see? What's dusty? What needs picking up? What's falling over?
Wow.
And it's like, think you just can't see it. You need to have fresh eyes, basically.
I think that that's probably the best piece of advice you can give any retailer. I think that I don't know how retailers don't sometimes, because I'll go in windows and there's like dead flies and it's like,
Yeah.
and I think a part of it, they can't get into the window, but part of it is also, it's like just what you said, look at it as your customer is looking at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so huge, it's like going and looking at it with fresh eyes.
Yeah. But I think in a store manager's eyes, it's a priority thing, isn't it? Like they think, well, I've got all this to do and there's a dead fly in the window. But actually, your customer's coming along and they're going to see this dead fly. And one of the very first impressions they're going to get is that this is a bit tired and dusty in here. I'm not sure I can be bothered to even step inside the doors. So it's like, actually, it should be your number one priority.
Well, it's like I always say, your windows and your opening statement is always like your calling card. It's like what people
Yeah, totally.
grabs you from outside as you walk by, and it's like if things are dirty and you know that and again, like I always refer to Dale from Keaton, always says that the way you treat your product and your windows and your retail, like the way you treat it is what you tell your customers where you're putting, that's how it's valued. And if you don't take care of your windows, your product, and all your clothes are wrinkly and they're not folded and they're just like tossed on a table, it's like you're telling your customers that you don't value it. So you certainly can't expect them to value it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of customers pick up on this straight away. And I don't think store managers don't give them the credit for that all the time. Although I would sound too rude, but
no, I mean, I pretty much say it how it is here. You know, how did you find the podcast?
Well, I think I just searched for it. I just put visual merchandising or something in Spotify once and it came up and I loved it. There's not a lot of visual merchandising on Spotify podcasts, it would seem. So they're amazing. Do you have any other merchandising podcasts I can listen to?
I'm trying to think I'm trying to think. There is the Australian one, but I don't think it's merch. I think it's more business. It's funny. There aren't a lot of visual merchandising. And I think that's the reason why that gets some of the most popular, why we get so many hits on the merchandising one. Because I'm starting I started to do a paid platform, and I've now backed off on it. Now we're just going to put up the videos on YouTube because I realize there's not a lot of videos out there on how to merchandise either.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. You do it. I'm not sure about, I don't think I could be, I'm not too happy in front of the camera and listening to my own voice. I'm not sure I could do it, but totally should.
You could do it easily. So when you're doing, because I always to me, the UK holiday always looks so magical. Like how do you approach holiday planning there in the UK? Because it always seems so much more over the top than here in America.
Do you think so? Oh, I wouldn't have said that at all. Okay. Yeah. What do you mean? I mean, is it because it's European, so it's sort of, and it's cold and snowy, or maybe it's because we've got real snow outside all the time?
I don't know. There just seems to be something that's less commercial and more traditional, I guess, when I look at how it's approached in retailers in the UK. And you know, I mean, holiday for us, it's like it runs the gamut from, being bright and fun, and too traditional, to, some people like Christmas trees, some people hate them. Like,
Yeah.
very kind of, and that's the beauty of retail here. But for me, when I look at retail in the UK, and it always looks very traditional and very, I don't know, it's something that conjures that memory of holiday and childhood to me, looking at the UK displays.
Oh, I like the idea of that. So like working for IKEA and working for Flying Tiger, they're both Scandinavian retailers. So it was quite a big thing, being a lot to do with the hygge and, lots of candles and lots of like getting comfortable and your hot chocolates and, lots of snow and the fire going, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a big deal. But from my point of view, as you know, it'd be done and dusted by August, early September at the latest. So because then it's like, all the planning is there, done. So like right now is a bit of a quieter time of year for me. I don't know about you. And then I'll expect it to ramp up again, probably the end of next month, when like Christmas planning starts coming about. Is that how it works for you too?
It's funny. I have one client that we do their holiday decor, but I don't do much holiday planning myself. One of my stores, Rock Paradise, I do their holiday buys and I tested the waters with ornaments last year. They already had crystal ornaments they did, but I tested the water with like a theme. So we did mushrooms, and people went crazy. And this year now I'm going to kind of embellish on that and buy little bits more, but I'm usually the one installing the holiday. Like, I'm not the one doing the buying and the planning for it now. And for me, my busy time, like right now, I'm not busy right now because I came off of doing the gift show setups and my retailer setups.
Yeah.
March, I think I was done. So I've had March till now with had some jobs, but it's not like every single day I'm going to a job site. Yet I don't know about you. To me, it's really bad, but to me, when I look at my calendar and my days are full, that to me is like success. And that's not a good way of thinking about it. But so right now, my calendar is not like packed. It starts this weekend, actually, is where my busy season kicks off this weekend. And but holiday wise, it really doesn't happen until we're like in setup mode. Other than not for me.
So I think that's where we differ a little bit, is that I tend to do less of the install these days. I haven't done a Christmas install for quite a long time, probably 5 or 6 years, I'd say. Wow. And then it's the planning bit that and the last Christmas planning I did was 21 as well. So I didn't do any Christmas last year. It was all store interiors. So yeah, interesting. I don't know what this year's going to bring in terms of Christmas. We'll see. I'm not a big fan of Christmas. I know it's big. I know that you love it, don't you? I heard you say. I'm
a Christmas baby. So I was born 4 days after Christmas. And my mom always made such a big deal about it. And so I tend to have the same, like I have all my grandparents' ornaments. And I love, I start listening to Christmas carols in October.
Oh.
I also, because we have that overnight install for the brand Bristol Farms, which is a very high grocery store where we're installing Christmas in the middle of the night. Like, part of me does it to get myself hyped up and in the mood and feeling is 1 o'clock in the morning is not not my favorite time. So if I can do it, like make myself like happier with a cup of coffee and Christmas carols at 1 in the morning, if that helps, that's what I'll do.
Yeah, whatever gets you through.
Oh my God. I was going to ask you, because you're not, are you involved in the buying part of it at all? Like when you help your customer?
No, generally not. Sometimes I can offer advice in terms of like styling, but no, generally not. Like when I was with Flying Tiger, I would definitely be in the meetings where we were looking through what Denmark were sending over and what we would choose. But no, not part of the buying. I'd worked very closely with the buyers. I worked for a company called Miniso, which are like a Japanese version of Flying Tiger, and I worked very closely with the head of buying there. But no, I don't do buying.
Do they have show, like for us, we have 2 gift shows a year. Do they have gift fairs that
I loved it when you're talking about the markets on your podcast. I think it's very different in the UK. I need to go to America and go to some. Yeah, we do have we have shows over here, but they're nothing like. Well, I don't think they're anything like what they sound like they are in America. We have Top Drawer went to. What was that earlier in the year? That was quite interesting. But
Top
I think
Drawer?
they're great to go. I go anyway. Yeah. Have you ever been? Have you ever heard of Top Drawer? I go anyway, not that, even though I'm not a buyer, just because it's so inspiring, because you get to see what the trends are coming out, you get a feel for the colours, and the displays are generally really good as well, because I think a lot of brands have really good VMs on their teams, don't they? So you get to see some really cool stuff. But I don't think they're like you. I remember you talking about the sizes of some of the markets that you go to. They sound like they're going to take you days to get around. Like, well, only in the UK, it's like a couple of hours.
They happen 2 times a year. There's some buildings around the country that are full-time showrooms that they just that's if you want to go by in the middle of the season, you can go. But 2 times a year they have show circuits, and it's the Javits Center in New York is a temporary space. So it's set up, build out, shop, pack it up, and go home. But the year-round buildings are the ones that I work in and I set up. But they are, I mean, like Las Vegas is 3 separate buildings that have bridges that connect them that are, I think, like 18 floors, 23 floors. And like, I don't even know, but they're like each floor
my mind
is anything from rugs to furniture to all holiday decor but it's very, very big. And I always wonder when you shop for the UK, like what, so Top Drawer is can you shop there, or is it more like
it's a wholesale show? So yeah, so it's you go and place your orders as a buyer,
and they have all trend displays and
yeah, and there are lots of talks by industry experts, and brands will showcase, whatever they're doing, and lots of talks about sustainability or whatever the topic is. And yeah,
to go to that, I'm going to look up that.
You should. Have you been to the UK before?
No. I want to go. I think the only time, if we're going to make it, is if there's some place for my husband to surf, because he doesn't really have the desire. Like, oh, good, let's go to London, let's go to Paris. There's not really. I mean, it sounds like if we go somewhere, it's going to be like Portugal because there's surf.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Ireland's got some amazing surfing, apparently. Not that I'm a surfer, but
I have heard. So maybe we'll end it there. But as of right now, no, I have not been. And I really want to go to the Shop Objet show so bad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, do it.
That to me is
You're going to have to go without the husband.
Yeah, that would end up being a girlfriend's trip. I always ask people the question is, where do you find, as a creative person, where do you find inspiration?
Oh, I think I'm always in shops because it's my job. So, I'm always looking around. I think you can just absorb. You just sort of absorb it, don't you, as a creative person? So it be like I'm on Pinterest or magazines or going to a trade show. You could be watching a television program and something will speak to you. I think it's all around you. It just kind of like just sort of absorb it, really. Mm-hmm. But does that answer the question? That's quite a tough one, I think.
Well, I mean, for me, I go through magazines, and it's hard for me to get inspired for retail because I'm in it all the time. So I don't, and then when I'm done working in a store, I don't want to go out and venture and go walk around stores. Like, I don't know if you're the same way, but it's like once I'm done with what.
No, I love it. I really like it. I think it's because I spend a lot of time in front of the computer. So I would say, so I miss it a bit. So yeah, no, I like it. I like the drama of a decent shop.
And then my last question I always ask everybody is, what is a piece of advice for somebody that is interested in getting to visual merchandising on the side that you're on, planning?
Okay. Advice if you're going to get into it. Okay. I would get shop floor experience, because I think to produce a really good retail interior, I think you need to understand the logistics of how a shop actually works. It's not, and if you want to get into retail design because you like putting together mood boards and colours and putting together textures, and then it's really not what it's about. That's just like a small part of it. But if you're interested in human behaviour and the science behind numbers and selling, that's such a big part of it. And that's what makes it really interesting.
Oh my God, that's the best. Verity, thank you so much for your time. I know
Thanks for having me.
parts of the world and different times. I'm so glad this worked out to do this, because the original time, for those who are listening, original time I usually put my hours as like, if I'm working on jobs, most of the time my interviews have to happen like 3 p.m, and sometimes as early as 11. But you had originally got the 3 o'clock time, and that was going to be 11 o'clock. And you were so nice. You're like,
I'm changing it.
I can have a cup of coffee. I'm like, oh my God, no, I can't do that.
Oh, it's great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Maybe I'm not waffled too much. I'm not really used to this.
No, I love it. I mean, it's like I said, like I really, I think the merchandising aspect of it, and everybody brings their own advice and their own good practices. And to me, that's always what I think is the takeaway. And it's like, whether you're here in the US or you're in the UK, it's like the principles for merchandising and what we all go by and what we all try and install and implement in our retailers is all very much the same. So I love hearing, a different version of it, because obviously all of us are here and that we're getting more of a UK presence, but I think that all of us here, it's always interesting to hear. And I haven't had a UK person, and I loved talking to you. It was so fantastic.
Well, thanks for keep doing the podcast. I love it. And it's all those, when I hear things, I think, oh, that's exactly like me. So it's really good. I really like it. It's good company when I'm working away.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing.